Slides? Alex, do I have slides? So we're building weather stations. And I was supposed to bring one, but I was late in the morning, so I didn't bring one. But if you have slides, we will see one. So, okay, cool. So there's not a lot of people here, but how many of you do you know what DePIN is? Decentralized Physical Infrastructure. Okay, 2, 4, 5, 6, okay. And how many of you know helium? Oh, all of you, great. And how many of you know WeatherXM? Okay, so if we ignore the small number of people, we could claim like WeatherXM is already a huge success because almost everyone knows it. So yeah, I'm Manos from WeatherXM. And we're doing helium for weather, and we've been doing it for a few years now, and it's working great. Do you know if we're a Solana project or an Ethereum project? So our token is on Arbitrum. Well, actually, it's on Ethereum mainnet, and we bridged on Arbitrum for the community rewards. But then we did a special project with Swissborg, so we bridged to Solana as well. So we are all over the place. What else should I tell you without getting into my slides? 10 seconds, okay. So Solana has a reputation for DePIN, I think. Ethereum kind of lost the edge there. But of course, it shouldn't matter what chain you're using, but it matters when you are like in events and people have an understanding of what we're talking about. It's better to have more of the same people at the same place. So that's how a weather station looks like. It's a small plastic device that has sensors, and you deploy it outside and collects weather information like precipitation, wind, temperature, humidity, solar radiation, and so on. And we're building the world's largest weather infrastructure in terms of speed that is growing, but also in terms of size. So far, we have deployed more than 7,000 weather stations worldwide in 8 countries, and our projections are 20,000 within this year, which means we're going to have more weather stations than NOAA has. NOAA is the meteorological organization of the US, the largest one in the world. We do this because most of the worldwide economy is weather sensitive. From agriculture to energy, there's billions of resources that are wasted due to forecasting accuracies. And we were inspired by Filecoin and helium before the word DePIN existed. And we came up with this idea of a new economic model for building weather infrastructure, where the community buys and deploys weather stations, they generate weather data, and we reward them with our own token, WXM, for the data they produced. And then companies that want to consume this data, they have to purchase the token and spend it in exchange for the weather data and weather services. It's a simple DePIN concept. But in order to apply this concept, we had to create our own hardware. And the problem with ordinary weather stations is that they don't have this sense of security and blockchain and crypto and so on, so anyone can spoof the data. So we had to create our own weather stations to add some elements, a crypto chip that essentially signs the payload of the sensors in order to create cryptographic proofs on-chain about weather conditions. If we didn't have that, anyone would game the system, the reward system. But so we started with the first Wi-Fi weather station, and we added new families of different types of weather stations, which essentially differentiate in the communication technology that they use. So we have Wi-Fi, helium, and 4G, and we're going to launch some industrial options this year. And everyone who has a weather station, they also get a weather app, which is used to configure the hardware, to configure their wallets in order to get their rewards. But they also get benefits out of the app, which is a more accurate weather forecast. Well, historical weather data, real-time weather data, but a forecast as well. And we recently launched our professional services, which is targeting system integrators and companies in the weather space, so they get even more advanced weather services, which are built on top of the data that we collect from the weather stations. And one of those, we call it hyperlocal forecast, and essentially the way that we tackled this, how can we improve the forecast, is by monitoring the accuracy of third-party forecasts. So we aggregate a lot of forecasts from a lot of companies. We try to figure out which one has a better fit per station, and then we build corrective models on top of that using machine learning. So this is like a simple technique where you can produce a custom forecast without being a meteorological company, essentially just by doing data science. So the network today counts more than 7,000 stations, which is like half NOAA. We're growing at 300 stations per month, or 10 stations per day. And it might not sound like a big number if you think about Facebook and Instagram and those kind of things, but for hardware, this is a huge growth. You think that we have to ship these devices all around the world, people have to get it, build some infrastructure in their field or houses, and deploy the hardware and make sure that it's working. So 10 per day is a huge number. And one important aspect in our project is to make sure that the network is healthy. This is one of the greatest weaknesses of public infrastructure, essentially. And traditionally, weather stations are government's job. And we have observed that most of the times, roughly 50 to 30% of weather stations that the governments operate are offline. So, and that's normal. They consider this normal because that's a huge expense for them to maintain. Now, in our case, we're proud to say that more than 80% of the network is in pristine condition because of the crypto incentive. And we're monitoring this very closely, and we have developed a number of different novel algorithms to be able to track this. We have quite a few customers. We consider them to be early pilots. One of them is PG&E in California, the energy company. And the use case there is related with fire, actually, and they've been collaborating with us for more than 2 years now. But I guess we didn't help much. Another customer of ours is here in Greece, the port of Piraeus. We have pilots in Colombia in a banana farm that we're doing insurance on chain. We had weather stations in the Paris event. We had 40 stations in every stadium and event in the Paris Olympic Games. And we also give our data to meteorological companies, universities, and so on. And the project goes back a couple of years, and one of the issues that we had was that we couldn't find community members in some specific countries that we thought data have more value, especially in the global south and developing nations. So we had to solve this problem. We always aspired to solve this problem by decoupling the ownership from the operation. So a couple of months ago, we tried this experiment where we asked people to pay for hardware that they wouldn't receive. So we kind of subsidized the cost of the hardware, and we gave this hardware for free to deployers, to people that we thought they can actually deploy it. But they had to share the rewards with the people who paid for the hardware. It's like cloud mining, but for weather. And that was very successful. We raised $600,000 in Swiss pork, which is what I mentioned before. So this is inside the Solana infrastructure. So this $600,000 converts to 2,270 weather stations that we gave away for free to Latin America, Africa, and India. And this project is ongoing, but it had an immediate effect that right now it seems that we're going to have the largest infrastructure of weather stations in India right now, because we're deploying 800 stations there, and the government has less. In South Africa, similar situation, and in Mexico as well. This is just to get an idea how the user experience was from the investor's point of view, for the people who contributed capital to convert to hardware. So essentially they were using a mobile app, the Swissborg mobile app, and they were just buying something that looked like yield farming or buying an NFT that will give them rewards for the next 3 years. So I think it was super easy. It seems to me that it's easy to fundraise essentially through this kind of tools. And this program, I think, is nicely placed to, it's nicely designed for a win-win for all stakeholders. So, because the farmers in those places, they get free weather stations and they get free weather forecasts that they can use on a daily basis to optimize their operations. And usually those are poor farmers that they couldn't afford a weather station, or in places that they don't even have connectivity and they don't have decent weather forecasting services. At the same time, the people who helped this project materialize, the deployers as we call them, they get a portion of the rewards that the stations generate. And of course, the Swissborg users get the remaining ones. So the idea here is to create a sustainable way of growing weather infrastructure that is paid only by the tokens that the hardware produces, and then those tokens get value from the customers that consume the data. So that's basically the value proposition that we have. We sell weather data in places that didn't have weather data before, with cryptographic proofs and custom services built on top of those data, like custom forecast, custom trained forecast, which is something very unusual. You cannot have a custom forecast for a weather station on the cheap. Those are custom projects that companies in the energy space usually produce and consume. I've got a couple of slides here about the market. There's no need to get in this, but the point here of the slides is that we think there's a huge opportunity ahead, which is related with parametric weather insurance in the agriculture industry, which is a larger market than the market that the weather services market, essentially. And so the end goal for our project is not to build the world's largest weather infrastructure, but also to be able to provide weather risk management, essentially, by providing weather insurances. And we are doing some small experiments with prediction markets that are doing weather bets, essentially, today, which is something that didn't exist a couple of months ago. Overall, we've raised $13 million. Our investors include Chris Burniski or Juan Bennett from Filecoin, Placeholder, Consensus, and a lot of other great folks from the crypto space. We're more than 40 people, and roughly 30 of us were based in Athens, in Gazi, and that's WeatherXM. Happy to answer questions.
Two questions, and I may have missed it, but Can you remind me how much it is to buy one of these weather stations?
So I didn't mention that. It's $400. So the Wi-Fi and the helium ones, the most cost-efficient ones we have, the first two are $400 plus shipping. So,
are you in Poland?
what do you mean?
Poland, the country? Do you have any?
Yeah, but you mean, do we have stations there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have stations in 80 countries, so definitely have lots of stations in Poland. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a limit in the number of stations that you have in any country?
Kind of. So yes, but it's not applied yet. So we've done an exercise. We call it cell modeling, and we basically designed some hexagons all around Earth at a specific size, which is like roughly 5 square kilometers. And based on the landscape and the land use and the height and the variability of height of mountains and sea and so on every cell, we have decided what is the optimum number of weather stations that should be deployed in that cell. And so we've done this modeling. We have some limits, so you cannot buy 10 weather stations and put them at, all of them at your house and expect to get 10 times the rewards. We have a lot of limitations and penalties and so on, but we haven't applied the grand scheme yet. So in theory, you can put as many weather stations as you want in Poland, but in practice, we know that there is a threshold. There is a limit, that there's no point. Well, there is a point, but we're not going to give you rewards
Right.
more than that.
Love it. I love your model. It's cool.
Hi, thank you for this. Back in 2018, the first thing that sold me on smart contract technology was the idea of insurance going on chain and smart contracts doing everything for the settlement. The problem at the time was that you couldn't move off-chain data on-chain. How are you solving this? Or are you using an oracle? Are you using, how are you using your data on-chain is my question.
Great question. So when we started designing this back in 2019, actually. And one of the first problem that I was trying to solve was what you just described. And I would say that even today, there's no obvious approach for this. But it's definitely easier than it was like a couple of years ago. So the way we ended up solving this, after doing a ton of research, like literally working on this for more than a year. So as I mentioned, we have this crypto chip that is signing the payload, and we are transferring this signature all the way, everywhere that the data exists. You can also find this signature. So that's the proof that the data originated from this hardware. And also the hardware has a secure GPS module in it, so you cannot easily spoof its location. Initially, we had the hardware using IPFS as the first gateway to deliver the data. We're not doing this today. We're using a centralized infrastructure. But the important aspect here is that the data lands in Filecoin at the end. So we have proofs, we have contracts that can prove that the data originated from this hardware and somehow found its way into Filecoin. And from there, it's easy for us to act as an oracle, because the end goal for the project is to act as a weather oracle. However, what we don't have today, what we haven't achieved today, is to be sensor resistant. So we as a team, we can stop this infrastructure if we wanted to. There's a lot of AWS involved in our infrastructure. So it's not a protocol yet. It's not a superstructure like a blockchain. But we're using all the existing tools and technologies that we could find to solve this problem. And I hope in the near future we will be able to describe you a protocol and not a centralized project with proofs.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Great.
Thank you, Manu.
That was great.
Thank you, Manu.